New York and on the new Hot 97 app. Ebro in the morning on Hot 97.
It's Ebro in the morning. Beautiful Laura Styles, Rosenberg. Give it up for David Oyelowo one time, a.k.a. MLK. You know what I'm saying?
Dr.
Martin
King is
Jr.
here.
in the building.
I never thought this would happen.
Neither did I.
How often do you get that where somebody goes, you were...
Quite a bit. There are worse things you could be called than Dr. King, but it's a huge honor. It was an amazing experience, and I'm glad to be part of his legacy in a small way.
Before we get to the new movie, which we were just watching the trailer for, Don't Let Go, it looks great. Before we get to that, so when you hear about this role, first of all, not being American, I never understand exactly what people's perception, particularly black people from other parts of the world, how exactly you viewed Dr. King before you took the part. Like, what role did he occupy in your brain?
Well, of course, he's world famous. I knew of him, but certainly not to the degree that I would have done if I were African American. And I actually think that ended up serving me in some weird way. I wouldn't have cast me as Dr. King, but the fact that I was chosen is still something that's a shock to me. But the truth is, I didn't fully take on just how big of a deal it was that I was getting to play this, and it helped me.
Yes.
Because otherwise I think it would have been overwhelming. I don't think I would have been able to really just go to the truth of who he is, as opposed to, you can't play an icon, you can only play a human being, and I think I was able to do that because I hadn't grown up with him to the same degree I would have done if I'd been born here.
Was that ultimately Ava's choice? Is that how that works?
No. I chose her, actually. We did a film called Middle of Nowhere together, tiny film we made for $200,000, and I had been cast by another director. We just couldn't get the film made. People just kept on telling us, I don't know if anyone's going to want to see a film about Dr. King, let alone with a guy who no one knows how to say his name.
Wow.
And I'd done this tiny film with Ava. I just knew I had been in the midst of a genius, and I said, it has to be this lady. They fought me on it a bit, but we kept on fighting, and it ended up being her.
And so you were the driver in this whole and what became this Selma thing, you and...
Yeah. I first read the script in 2007. We didn't get to make it till 2014, so it was a 7-year journey for me. Yeah.
Salute to you, brother. That is amazing.
Thank you.
I had no idea that played out that way.
Me neither. And how satisfying is that when it starts that much earlier, and when you get there to actually get the recognition and success that it got?
Oh, yeah. And we went through 5 different directors. The first director rejected me, but I just believed that this was going to be part of my future, and that, these revolving doors of directors came and went, and I'm just so glad it was her in the end.
Acting and having to change your natural accent, right? It always amazes me, whether it's Americans putting on accents or people from other places putting on American accents, how much work that takes. I would love to hear from you, like, how hard that is to put on American accent. And because technically that goes beyond just a regular actor to me. Like, that is something that's beyond someone, that might just be a box office favorite. Right. That's another level.
Well, and it's not like you're doing a Robert De Niro, New York Italian accent.
Right.
You're doing like a Georgia, 1960 accent.
But even in Don't Let Go, it's straight ahead.
From LA,
could be from anywhere. Regular detective,
right,
who's going through something.
Yeah. Look, it's even tougher now that people know that I have this accent, because people are looking for it. When I played Dr. King, I was less known, so I think people were kind of, they had a chance to have that be their first impression of me to a certain degree. But yeah, it's part of the work. Being an actor is just a huge privilege. I take it very seriously, and I know that not only the accent, but everything about any character I take on has to feel true. And so, you just go do the work. I mean, I went to drama school in the UK, and a big part of our training was accents and playing different kinds of roles. And so, but also I grew up loving American movies. So, I've grown up around the accent in a way that maybe, an American actor wouldn't, in relation to the British accent or British films. So, it's always been a part of my my life.
How much did you connect with the King family? And can you share any stories about your research, anything that you found that you never knew before?
Oh, there was so much I came to find out. But one of the most intimidating things was, playing not only such an iconic figure, but someone whose kids are still around.
Right.
And Bernice King in particular, the weekend before, I don't think I've ever told this story actually, the weekend before we started shooting Selma in Atlanta, we went to the King Center in Atlanta, and we were there with Common. Common's in the film as well, and so we arrived there, and he's mobbed. So we have to be walked out of the King Center, and just as we're being walked out, we're told to stop. We say, Dr. King wants to see you. I was like, what? Dr. King? It was his daughter, Bernice. Bernice King wants to see you. And I was like, oh my God, I don't know how she feels about me playing this role. I don't know that I want to meet her. Yeah. And I've put on 35 pounds. I've got my hairline shaved back. I've got the mustache. It's very clear who I'm playing in the movie. She comes down. It's me, Common, Tessa Thompson, Coleman Domingo, all playing different roles in the movie. And she goes to everyone and goes, so what you playing? So what you playing? And she leaves me to last. I was like, Lord, it's clear what I'm playing. Why are you leaving me to last? And he goes, so what you playing? Who do you think you are exactly? And I'm there, and the worst thing happens, like, because Dr. King had this big voice, and and my voice, I'm so nervous. Like, I'm playing your father. I was like, that's not the way to tell the woman you're playing her dad. But she literally in the moment, she said, you do know this is divine, right? You know this is God's calling on your life. And I hope so. And she prayed for us right there in the foyer. And for that to happen the Friday before I start shooting on the Monday was a huge blessing.
Now, following it up, Selma, obviously you've done a lot of other work. This is more of an, you're a detective. Mm-hmm. It's action. Yeah. It's an action film dealing with some sort of almost
supernatural
thriller.
Yeah.
I was going to say spiritual, but supernatural kind of moment.
Yeah.
How hard is it to go on now and, always be compared to Selma? Because that's always there, right? I'm sure anybody that's done great performances of any kind, whether it's sports or anything else, you're always compared to these other moments.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's a good thing that it's a good thing. Do you know what I mean? Like there are
it's a great problem to have.
Right, exactly. You could have a film that tanked, or a film or a cheesy kind of thing that you're known for. This is, I grew up. Sidney Poitier is my hero. Denzel Washington as well. I remember seeing Denzel as Malcolm X and just thinking, oh, how did he do that? Daniel Day-Lewis is one of my favorite actors as well, watching him play Lincoln. Those actors, I've seen them play these kind of lofty, iconic roles and go on to do other things. And so that's not bad company, not even for me to say I'm in, but to compare myself to as to what's possible. So, my goal is just to keep on stretching myself as an actor.
And before you were in Selma, weren't you in Lincoln?
Yeah.
And you also in The Butler.
Yeah.
So you've played those serious timepieces.
Yeah. Lots of historical pieces for some reason. But I've loved doing them all. Yeah.
Are you excited about the election of Boris Johnson in the United Kingdom?
I can't say that I'm excited about anything to do with politics. I don't know about you. You guys probably can't because of what you do. I've just had to zone out the news. It was just really beginning to affect me. I'm talking like real mental health.
But I think what you're saying is a majority of the population of Brazil's going through something with the leadership there.
Yeah.
Boris Johnson, Trump. I'm trying to think. And then there's obviously other nations that have always had to deal with political issues, many times. But I think it does affect the population. I think they know it affects the population, traumatizes them in a certain way, and kind of almost, for lack of a better term, sterilizes people in a way that's like, I don't even want. That's what you're saying is my biggest fear, is that people tune it out. Mm-hmm. and then they just get to go on about their business of affecting our lives without us paying attention. That's my biggest fear.
Yeah, it's a huge fear of mine as well. But I have 4 kids.
Right.
My dad lives with us, and you know, it was affecting my ability to be a loving father, a loving husband, a loving employer of other people, because you just start your day in a funk.
Yeah, man.
And so, you know, I've chosen to, you know, with my work and with what I can affect, what I can control, to love those around me and to live, hopefully, by example. And start there, because I can't start my everyday angry, you know, and then I'm hoping to be able to then build out, you know, from impacting my community in a positive way and go out from there. I don't dispute what you're saying.
No,
Right.
You're
You had to make a
doing
choice.
self-protect. You're like self-preservation,
Right.
Which has to happen also,
Right.
The problem is those of us who are, I believe, in my opinion, on the moral high ground are also the ones who are most likely to be truly impacted and constantly scared and a little bit hysterical. Like I feel hysterical at times. Like I definitely have moments where I'm like, yo, the world, it's all the walls are caving in, and it's problematic because I think the people who don't morally give a shit, they don't feel that at all. And in fact, things are going well for them. White supremacy's on the rise. Terrible people are in power. You know, they're feeling fine.
Right.
Whereas us, the people who need to be aware and fighting, we're kind of like, you got 4 children. You have a life. You have to handle your life.
Yeah.
You know, it's very challenging.
The really challenging thing is, I think there are these 2 extremes. There's the inertia, and then there's the hysteria, and both things aren't helping, because you're right. Tuning it completely out doesn't help, but also just making a lot of noise also allows for this stream of badness to carry on in the middle, and you know. Soon after the election, something very strange happened, where people who I knew to be articulate and eloquent and intellectually sound lost that ability. You know, I would be in conversations. I was like, I don't even know how to talk, because you are just
You lost your shit.
You're imploding.
Exactly.
You lost your shit.
And it stuck around for 2.5, 3 years, which is why I was just like, I have to get back to something whole, because I was in it as well. My dad just literally just watches the news all day.
That's a problem too.
Yeah.
And now your
Not
dad's from
healthy.
Nigeria, which has its own political.
Oh my God! And for time
Shitstorm
immemorial,
Right.
you know. But this is like a different thing. The sort of almost George Orwellian 1984 kind of just
man.
you know, it's
that reference, that 1984 reference is
It's so true now.
it's
Oh,
so
my goodness.
fact, and you're
Yeah.
hearing it so often. And if people haven't experienced that book and like really seen what it is,
Yeah, which is why, you know, you just got to take time to smell the roses. You know, before you know it, you'll be old and you'll have spent a lot of time angry.
David Oyelowo, you are being a British Nigerian person. How often do you get back to Nigeria?
I go back probably once a year, maybe once every 2 years. I have
You were born in England?
I was born in England,
Got it.
but I lived in Nigeria for 7 years, from the age of 6 to 13. But I get to go back that often now, because we have a leadership scholarship there for girls. It started with girls who had been affected by Boko Haram, to give them the education that was being denied them, and now we've made it a more nationwide thing. It's the David Oyelowo Leadership Scholarship, but it's run through the GeneCo Foundation. And we now have, quite a few girls that we're paying their whole education. So I go and see them once a year, maybe once every 2 years.
We try to, on the show, highlight the positive, amazing things that are happening with Africa now. Almost 70 years independence for a lot of nations, and the building of the bridge between Black Americans, African Americans going back, and it's the year of return and those things. Are you seeing a lot of positive change through your vision of what's going on business-wise and economy with not only Nigeria but Africa too?
I am. You know, something happened. One of the good byproducts of the economic crash of 2008 is a lot of the brain drain out of Africa reversed. So, you know, a lot of Africans, a lot of Nigerians went back.
Doctors, lawyers.
Yeah, exactly. And now, you know, 12 years on, 11 years on, we're seeing the impact on Africa, that a lot of those human resources are now impacting the continent positively. And I think that has now made African Americans, Africans, Black people around the world look at Africa in a more positive way. Not long ago, it was still a hard thing, I think, as an African, to talk about Africa, even to African Americans, because it was associated with negative things. It was associated with things that you're not particularly proud of.
That's right.
But now that's changing, and I think it's a beautiful thing. I also think, you know, the Ancestry.com and all that stuff that people are doing and realizing that they are closer to that continent than they may have realized has also led to a huge spike in pride for the continent.
The movie Don't Let Go, when drops August 30th.
Yeah.
It was produced by you also.
Yeah. And that's something I'm doing more of. You know, you can either complain about people like me not getting to tell stories or be in the kind of stories we want to be in, or you could just go ahead and make them. And, you know, I learned that firsthand on Selma. I learned that through fighting for Ava to be the one to make that film, and then her and I collaborating on a bunch of other things and realizing you can go ahead. And my industry it's opening up. You know, I produced this alongside Jason Blum. Jason, you know, his company did Get Out. They've done they did Us. They've done a number of great films that show Black actors, Black directors, producers, writers doing things that are not just race specific. That's one of the things I love about Don't Let Go as well.
That's what I was going to ask you. What do you think? I know you'll probably say all are important, but what do you think for you is the most important? Telling Black stories, telling stories where more characters happen to be Black, which has been problematic forever, sort of, particularly in American film and television, or telling stories that are about whatever, but having more Black people behind the camera telling those stories.
My job is to display humanity. And I am part of humanity. I am an integral part of humanity. People who look like me are an integral part of humanity, and that's my job. We have all sorts of cultural, historical, socioeconomic reasons why we, for whatever reason, marginalize people. But the only way I think you continue to break down prejudice is to display humanity in all of its varied forms. And so I can't be the one who dictates how what I do is going to be received, but I can have a hand in what I make. And if I make enough of it, and I make enough of it well, my prayer is that with time, it will break down the notion of who you think and what you think a leading man should look like, a film should look like, stories about Africa should look like, because you're getting a wave that is showing you, even though I may not look like you.
Okay, well
David Oyelowo.
I think he'll one day be knighted.
Sir,
We will call him Sir David Oyelowo.
We don't
guarantee it.
need the Queen and her knight
wanna
to
call
make
him
him
Sir anyway?
official. He's Sir.
He's Sir to me.
King. How about King? King. He's Nigerian. They
I
got
went from
King. They don't
Sir
need
to
just
King.
Sir.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? They got gold. They got all that already.
You turned it into a negative. I just meant he sounds very
I just didn't want a bunch of white people having to validate David. That's all. You know what I'm saying?
Would you accept the knighting if it was offered?
She made me an OBE, so we've started.
What's that
well.
mean?
An officer of the British Empire.
So we like her.
I like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
And she's quite nice.
You met her.
Yeah, she hasn't done anything bad to me.
Was it an interesting?
Well, I mean, not directly, but you know what I'm saying?
Did you meet? But what's it like when you meet the Queen? How does that experience go?
You get more polite than you've ever been in your entire life.
That's what I was thinking about interviewing you right now. We've been nicer and like more
really?
politically
With me?
because of you. Because you're
wow.
smart and amazing.
Well,
and
mostly because you
well-spoken.
think he sounds smart.
Well, no,
Yeah.
he is
You,
smart.
no, I know that, but we talked to lots of people who are smart. They don't all sound as smart as David.
Well, but that's
I
because
see.
we're programmed to think because you have a British
I know,
accent,
I know.
which goes back to colonialism anyway. Don't get me started, bro.
You know what? Let's wrap it up.
I was leaving this with the Queen is cool.
Don't
she
Let
likes
Go
David. We like
is
David.
in theaters
Don't
at
make
the end
me
of
go
August.
back to the whole origins of how this even happened.
Yay,
Go check out
I'm with you, by the way.
Go check out the movie.